always and ever, singing. Music, yes, please. Randy Travis had a voice that people would lean into without realizing it for decades. Not loud or flashy, just steady. Such that it seemed like it had lived a life before you heard it. You could trust him by the late 1980s because he was effective. His job as a radio host was to keep people from changing stations. People in his family trusted his songs to play in the background of their homes, long car rides, and Sunday afternoons. People in country music knew they could count on him to pull it back from the edge when it got too close to polish and pop. He sang like he meant every word, even if the song wasn't his. But most people who heard Randy Travis didn't know that he had been carrying heavy things for a long time before he became famous. That weight, music, never went away. It only changed form. His birthday is May 4, 1959, and he was born in Marshville, North Carolina. The sixth child in a family that never seemed to be solid. Harold Trawick, his father, worked in construction, battled with alcoholism, and thought that fear was the best way to teach discipline. It wasn't always violent at home, but it was random enough that being quiet became a way to stay alive. Randy learned early on not to talk too much. It was safer to listen. Music came into his life in a quiet way. There is a guitar against the wall. The church was filled with the sounds of gospel music. Pickup trucks and kitchen windows are filled with country music. Not having a plan gave him something that singing did. A place where the rules made sense and being emotional wasn't a crime. It was weird that the fact that he could sing better than most people in town made things worse. He may have chased trouble, or it may have chased him. People are arrested for small crimes, running away, and skipping school. He even spent some time in juvenile prison at one point. People would one day say that the boy's voice was pure, but he was already making mistakes that are hard to erase. Elizabeth Lib Hatcher, who would become his wife, saw something that no one else did. She thought the voice could come to life. She was in charge of him, stood up for him, and scolded him when no one else could. Their relationship made all the lines less clear. Personal, social, and emotional. That blur kept him floating for a long time. When things did go well, they went well quickly. It did really well in 1986, and Storms of Life even changed the way most people listened to country music. Songs like On the Other Hand and 1982 didn't try to get attention, they just waited for it, and people came. Randy Travis was famous all over by the early 1990s. #1 hits, tours that sold out, and awards that sat quietly in rooms that never seemed to get any bigger. He kept his clothes simple, spoke slowly, and avoided showing off in public. It looked like balance from the outside. But balance isn't strong when it's based on stress. Behind the scenes, there was a lot of work to do. People expect you to always sound, feel, and give the same level of gravity when you're on tour, recording, or doing interviews. It wasn't like his voice was a part of him. People used it like a resource. At the same time, the friendship that had held his life together started to fall apart. The feeling of control turned into anger. Giving help turned into needing help. It wasn't just a marriage ending when Randy and Lib broke up in the early 1990s. When the system that had held him together since he was a teenager fell apart, he lost everything. What happened next wasn't very exciting all at once. It was slow. When alcohol came back, it wasn't as chaos, but as comfort. Legal problems came up again. There were public events that were shocking because they didn't sound like the person people thought they knew. Album covers were changed to mug shots in the news. Suddenly, the man who sang about grace could only come up with jokes. He kept doing his show though. But he kept recording anyway. Still, some people thought the voice was stronger than the person. After that, in 2013, everything stopped. A sudden virus attack or a huge stroke. Doctors weren't sure if he would make it through the night. Not even talk or sing again. It was called sad in the news. But disaster makes you think of surprise. Randy Travis didn't just fall apart like this. It was the moment when everything finally hit the ground. The voice that millions of people heard had almost stopped speaking. It was the first time that there was nothing left to play. Randy Travis was rushed to a Texas hospital on July 8, 2013, with what doctors at first thought was a simple virus. He was weak, lost, and having a hard time breathing. Within hours, things got worse. His heart started to stop beating. His lungs were full of water. Then there was the stroke. By the end of that night, doctors had put him into a coma with medicine. Most of the work that his body could no longer do on its own was being done by machines. One doctor told his family in private that he didn't think he would make it. Someone else told him that even if he did, he probably wouldn't be able to speak or move again. The chances were very bad. Surviving wasn't certain. Recovery didn't seem possible. Because sound had always been a part of his character, silence came in on its own. It was clear that Randy had been hurt when he finally woke up days later. His left side was badly hurt from the stroke. His right arm was very stiff. His speech was broken up into single sounds and strained efforts at words that wouldn't work. It wasn't possible to sing. It was a fight to talk. But nurses saw something early on. His breathing changed when soft music played in the room. His eyes were focused. He still had a part of him that was interested in music and melody. It was stuck and had to wait. It took a long time, was painful, and made me feel weak. Long hours of physical therapy were spent doing moves that most people don't even think about. Being able to stand and hold a spoon. Therapists were happy with improvement that was measured in seconds and inches. Randy used to be in charge of stadiums, but now he was struggling to lift his foot without help. It was even harder to do speech training. His mind knew what to say. His mouth didn't always do what he said. Vowels got longer. The consonants went away. It was clear that they were angry. Some days he shut down totally because all the work he was doing wasn't paying off. Still, something very interesting happened. Another doctor told him to try something new during one session. She asked him to sing instead of talk. At first, only breath came out. As it went on, a tune slowly began to take shape. Not smooth or strong, but definitely his. Speech couldn't get to some places that music could. Neurologists have known for a long time that singing can get around damaged language areas in the brain. Randy Travis saw it as a way to stay alive. He wasn't able to talk, but he could write down notes. The voice wasn't gone, but it was hurt. This new information changed everything. Therapy times changed. Warm-ups were based on music. The lyrics were no longer shows, but tools. It was still slow, but progress was being made. The weeks turned into months, and the months into years. In public, everyone hoped for a miracle. In private, the wonder was less loud. With help, Randy learned how to walk again. He learned how to talk using facial expressions, body language, and short sentences. Music, he learned how to be patient, which was a skill he had never really needed before. But the world had a hard time adjusting. Fans wanted news. The media sought comeback stories. The news stories hinted at the chance of one more song, one more show, and one triumphant return. Story arcs don't matter to healing, though. There were hurdles, like getting sick or tired, and days when progress stopped for no apparent reason. The anger wasn't just physical, it was psychological as well. Who are you when the thing you were born to do is hard for you? That question was heavy for Randy Travis. He went to award shows quietly and showed up at parties with people who knew him. People often held their breath when he went on stage because they didn't know if he would give a speech, sing, or do nothing at all. He could say a few words sometimes and just not other times. He did something that no one saw coming when he was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 2016. He started to sing Amazing Grace at the end of his speech, which was choppy and missing parts. The first sounds were not strong. The room went quiet. As the music went on, something very strange happened. The voice wasn't great, but it was there. People in the crowd sang with him, not over him. Coming back, wasn't it? It was a sign of agreement. Randy Travis would never be the same person he was before the stroke. That version of him was from a different life. That man, though, wasn't broken either. He was still here, fighting, and making sounds in any way he could. He was still being carried by the same thing that had carried him before. It wasn't tragic that the voice had been taken away. Everything had to be lost for the rest of the world to finally start to listen differently. Life became more limited after the stroke, but not in a sad movie way. Tours were replaced by appointments. Therapy took the place of practice. Not radio numbers or call times, but how stiff his body felt when he tried to stand up in the morning. Randy Travis wasn't going forward for the first time since he was a child. He decided to stay. Music, and you need a different kind of strength to stay. A lot of that security came from Mary Davis, the woman who came into his life years ago and stayed there quietly when everything else fell apart. They got married in 2015, a long time after he was no longer famous and after his illness had taken away any illusions about what it would be like to love him. Mary wasn't given a star. She inherited responsibility. She set up times for therapy, spoke up for him in hospitals, and learned his rhythms, boundaries, and quiet times. She learned to read what he meant even when he couldn't say it. It was not exciting. There was no praise for it, but it was steady. The change was seen by friends. Randy looked relaxed and less antsy. He used to be very driven to drink and hurt himself, but that edge dulled. It wasn't because temptation went away, it was because the structure around him finally made room for rest. Faith came back too, but not as a show. It came back as a habit. Ree had always done gospel music as part of his job, but after the stroke, it changed into something else. Songs were no longer used to make charts or win awards. They were workouts, warmth, and familiar ground in a body that didn't feel familiar. He was no longer able to sing well. He knew that, as well as everyone else. The music was still there for him to feel, though, and that was enough. It became rare and important to choose when to go public. He rarely spoke for a long time when he did show up. When he needed to, he let other people speak for him. He felt awkward when people applauded. It didn't fit with the way he was living. Behind the scenes, things were not nearly as inspiring as fans thought they would be. There were good days. He was sure of himself as he walked, made statements more easily, and laughed at the right times. Some days were tough. Early on, I felt tired. Muscles wouldn't work together. Words were just out of reach. Recovery did not happen in a straight line. It's still not. There were no triumphant comeback records, farewell tours, or plan-last songs meant to end a career in a neat way. Instead, something quieter and not nearly as commercial came next. Being there. Randy turned into a man who didn't need to be known when he went to family dinners, therapy appointments, or church. He learned early in life to listen more than talk, but he had forgotten how to do it over time. Fans sometimes came up to him in public. Some cried, and others said they were sorry for bothering him. Most of them just wanted to say thank you. Not for making it through, but for the music that had helped them get through something. Most of the time, Randy answered with a nod, a short word, or a hand squeeze. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to.